good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting of August 18th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Franciac, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Here.
Ms. Moulton.
Here.
Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hebeck.
Here.
Thank you.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, a couple of announcements right up front. Just for everybody's awareness, there'll be some striping going on of the streets, particularly the fog lines. This is in partnership with the city of Mount Vernon. So striping the fog lines, again, try not to drive through them. They dry really quickly, but the entire city where we have fog lines anticipate some painting going on. Also, this weekend, a lot of good events titled under Open Things. Open Streets, Sunday, August 24th from 11 to 3. So enjoy Commercial Avenue from 4th to 10th Streets, car-free while biking, skating, skateboarding, or walking. There'll be live music, vendors, and demonstrations. All are welcome to attend. Another on the list of open things, Naval Air Station Whidbey Island will have its open house on Saturday this weekend, the 23rd. Naval Air Station Whidbey Island will open its doors to the public at 8 a.m. if you're registering for the 5K. No, I'm not running in that, and that starts at 9, and then the open house is from 10 to 2. It's free and open to the public. Then final announcement, just a reminder, again, the draft comprehensive plan is open for comments, and those are open until the 28th of August. Comp plan outlines the city's vision for sustainable growth and development over the next 20 years, addresses key areas such as housing, transportation, environment, economic development, climate, and community services and facilities. The draft plan is available on our website, and comments may be submitted via email, complan@anacorteswa.gov, or attending Planning Commission public hearing on August 27th, 6 p.m. City Council chambers. So that's all I have. And before we go to our committee reports, get to do one of the things I like doing most, and that's swearing in some new police officers. So we have that, and Chief Floyd is probably already on his way to introduce this one, and we'll get on with it. Chief Floyd, when you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor Miller, members of council, and members of the audience in attendance tonight. Tonight I'm pleased to be here for the purpose of introducing Anacortes Police Department's most recent graduates of Washington State's Basic Law Enforcement Academy. Not only are Officer Thomas and Officer DeBarge the most recent CJTC graduates for our agency, but they are both graduates of the very first class to complete the Basic Law Enforcement Academy at the Northeast Regional Academy Training Facility in Arlington. While there, they represented our department very well during their time at the academy, and we're happy to have them back to introduce to you tonight. Officer Gabriel Thomas graduated from high school in the Portland, Oregon area and attended the University of Oregon, receiving a bachelor's degree in Japanese language and Asian studies with a minor in chemistry. Officer Thomas is a veteran and retired from the U.S. Navy in 2024 as a senior intelligence officer after a highly decorated career. Joining us tonight to witness Officer Thomas's oath of office are his wife, Judy, and his daughter, Jaden. Mayor Miller, will you administer the oath of office to Officer Thomas? Next, I'd like to introduce to you Officer Tim DeBarge. Officer DeBarge graduated high school in the Concord, North Carolina area. Officer DeBarge then went on to obtain his Bachelor of Sciences degree in Business Management from Coastal Carolina University. Prior to his coming to the Anacortes Police Department, Officer DeBarge worked primarily in the golf industry and is a likely candidate to anchor the APD golf team in the annual countywide charity golf tournament between police and fire. Joining us tonight to witness Officer DeBarge's oath of office is his fiancee, Bailey. Mayor Miller, will you administer the oath of office to Officer Tim DeBarge?
All right, great stuff, and thank you for everything you do and everything the Anacortes Police Department does for our city. All right, we are moving on to the rest of our committee reports. Economic Development Committee. Did we have an Economic Development Committee meeting? Maybe we didn't. Oh,
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Young.
Thank you very much. I apologize for that small delay. The Economic Development Committee met on August 12th. It was myself, Mr. McDougall, Ms. Hubick, of course, the staff Economic Development Director, and I believe Stephanie was there as well, correct? Yeah. But it was a great meeting. We had the Downtown Alliance to come and do a wonderful presentation of the results of their consumer survey, and we went in depth into understanding what it meant. Some of the things that came out was that, one of the things was, first of all, that their results are on their website. So I want to direct you there to see the full gist of the results. It was detailed and went into a lot of things that I thought was surprising, but in a good way, it was informative. It was great data. And one of the things was what 3 words used to describe downtown. And people said that they love the people, walkability, welcoming, which were all positives. They did mention the traffic downtown as an issue, but in some of the studies that downtown did, it found that when we were talking about parking being an issue, it really wasn't as much of an issue as we thought, or may have been a critical component of the discussion about what parking was. Also, community ratings was on page 5. People want value from their businesses? Are there enough events? So, you know, downtown also had a list of the top 15 events by respondents' interest. And so I think you would find that interesting in going through the results. The Arts Festival said that they had about 85,000 folks, 2 million in economic value, and 5 million in economic impact. So the benefit of having this survey, it really does deal with some of the myths of what we thought we needed, but it also dealt with the reality of some of the things that we already knew. But it was concrete enough for us to begin to look at where we go from here. Some of the things that we may want to do to begin to address some of the things that we want to see here in our beautiful town. But I encourage all of you to go to the Downtown Anacortes Alliance's website, take a look at the consumer survey results. I think you will find it quite interesting. And, you know, and what we may want to do. We also talked a little bit about Sharp's Corner, some thoughts, cruise line, where we have the cruise line coming in. The question was, you know, what benefit really is. There were some discussions at one point saying that, you know, when the cruise line would come in, most of the stores would close. Well, you know, the survey began to address some of that. I mean, quite honestly, I think that it's been illuminating, and the data will speak for itself. I think this will also go hand in hand with the results of the Economic Development Committee study as we begin to look at other ways, other thoughts, how we might want to begin to address Sharp's Corner, what businesses would be out there, what could we do with it. All of those came up, and it was a very invigorating discussion, illuminating in so many ways. And my encouragement to you out there is to take a look at it on the Downtown Anacortes Alliance's website, and I think, and send some comments. They're totally open. And then also send some comments to the Economic Development Committee here within the city, because those are some of the things we're going to begin to address now that we have the data that we need. Amanda, Bruce, is there anything you want to add that I may have missed? No, Amanda? Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for the committee? All right. Next up is Finance Committee. I don't believe they met, but there may be a report.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. We did have an update from the Finance Department, though we did not have a formal meeting. We learned that the 2025 annual financial audit officially kicks off today, and that will be going on for quite a while. The capital facilities plan is progressing as planned, and the first city council session with that will be on September 8th. And the 2026 draft schedule for the budget is being reviewed internally, and then will be formalized in the next few weeks. Basically, we'll have a revenue presentation to council and the public on October 6th, and the mayor's budget message is scheduled for October 20th. And that's the same time council will receive our copies of the budget, and then the public hearings will start in November 10th, and hoping to have the budget passed on December 1st. Crazy to think about that being close. So that's it for now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Finance Committee? Any other announcements or committee reports that I may have missed? Or okay, we'll move on to public comment. Any member of the public wish to address council? Anything is not on our agenda tonight? Okay, I see a hand raised. I don't have anybody signed up, but so come on up. Microphone, turn it on. Yep, the button at the base, green light.
Push?
There you go. Name and city, please.
My name is Pat Barrett. I live in Anacortes, Washington, and I was at your previous meeting that was scheduled at 4 o'clock, and I just want to say thank you for going through the process of the the event center. That said, I know you want public comment. I know you want public input. Those of you who have jobs, unlike me, I'm gainfully unemployed. I can afford to come here at 4 o'clock, as do many of the gray hairs in town. Those who work normally can't be here at 4 o'clock. It's convenient for some in power and in charge, but it does not work for the public. So in the future, I would ask that you think about that. But thank you for doing your work.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Anybody else? And checking online. Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda, items 5A through D. Council.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. McDougall.
I move approval of consent agenda items A through D.
Second?
Motion by Mr. McDougall, a second by Mr. Young. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are on to other business. Item 6A, Oak Harbor Police Department Training Range. This is a presentation, and I'd like to make a special welcome to the Honorable Mayor Wright, Mayor of Oak Harbor. Thanks for being here, and I'll let Chief Floyd introduce our guest.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. As you stated, we have Mayor Wright with the City of Oak Harbor with us, as well as Chief Slowick with the Oak Harbor Police Department. And they're here to give a presentation jointly with me tonight regarding the possibility of a investment for long-term training solutions for the police department. As you know, training is a significant portion of making sure our folks are adequately equipped to face challenges that they deal with out performance of their duties. And a significant portion of that is, the responsible handling of firearms. Our firearms training currently accounts for around $6,500 of our training budget. And I can tell you that we've managed to keep it as low as that due to some creative use of facilities that are available. But those access to those facilities is becoming significantly more challenging, and the available options are dwindling as there are less and less range facilities available. Historically, for the most of my time here in Anacortes, we've used the range facility in Whatcom County that was operated by the Whatcom County Parks Department. That range is currently closed, and there's no anticipated date for reopening that. Prior to it closing, there was some significant challenges with scheduling and being able to get an adequate number of range dates to train our folks. We typically try to offer 10 range dates a year for our staff to qualify at least quarterly, and then we have makeup sessions for anyone that misses one of their quarterly qualifications. The City of Oak Harbor is looking to purchase a range facility that is already built and has the capability to be operational pretty quickly. So the cost of range facilities under construction in other parts of the state is significant, and I won't steal too much of Chief Slowick's thunder here because I don't think he's going to get into that with his presentation. But our challenges, as I mentioned, are access and making sure we keep the cost down. So with that, I'll bring up Chief Slowick, and we can answer any questions once we get through the short series of slides we have here.
All right, welcome, Chief.
Thank you for having me, Mayor Miller and City Council. Chief Slowick with the City of Oak Harbor. So thank you, Chief Floyd, for the introduction. The City of Oak Harbor is looking to purchase and is under contract with a facility in the city limits of Oak Harbor. It previously was an indoor gun range. However, it's 13,000 square feet and it has more use than just the firearms portion. The facility, as we'll get into, has everything that we would need in our region for doing all law enforcement training for de-escalation, patrol tactics, critical incidents, co-response. So let me get in my presentation here. So currently we have over 300 law enforcement and corrections officers in Island and Skagit counties. Since 2020, the Washington state legislatures have placed an increased demand on law enforcement requiring unfunded training mandates. There are no shared use training facilities in Island, Skagit, Whatcom, or San Juan counties, and often we can't host training around here because we don't know a space that we're going to be able to reserve 6 months, 9 months in advance, when that's how long you need to project those training to secure training instructors. The other part of this is, like we all know, we all live on islands here, and our regional partnerships are essential to ensuring public safety. And so any critical event is going to stress out our local first responders, and training together is critical in our area to making sure that we can respond adequately and provide the proper safety to our communities. So a public safety training facility bridges the gap in our regional training needs, increases the frequency of training, allowing agencies to manage overtime and training budgets, ensures personnel have access to secure facilities for high-quality, reality-based training, improves cross-training in high-risk, low-frequency events, officer-involved shootings or other major events that we might have, allows regional partners to align training curriculum, improve mutual aid response, and provides a venue to host local training, which is critical to recruitment and retention efforts. Training needs often exceed a single department's budget due to the lack of local training options and the cost of securing training locations, which is what we have around here. So being able to host training locally now doesn't require us to pay per diem and lodging expenses, travel expenses that often require us to shift officers out of their normal patrol schedule into a different schedule, give them the time for travel, all of those other things that we're recouping. It also leverages regional partnerships already in place, such as SCADU, our drug task force, SMART, our officer-involved incident response team, and our regional SWAT team that we have. So this is the facility that we're looking at in Oak Harbor. It's unit number 1 in green. It is a 13,000 square foot facility. The current cost that we're looking to purchase it for is $2.7 million. It has undergone several assessments to ensure that it meets OSHA and L&I certified indoor firing range requirements, because as probably some of you may know, about 8 years ago there was a big problem with indoor gun ranges not having adequate ventilation and all of those type of things. This facility has all of that equipment and passed all the certification testing. Also has a dedicated training classroom, and it has enough space to do all of the training that you see there, is de-escalation training, patrol tactics, less lethal, civil disturbance, defensive tactics, use of force, and virtual reality training. Also lets us be able to train intervention strategies with our co-response and fire and EMS as well. The city of Lacey currently is building the same use facility, 10,000 square feet. It's $10 million is the current cost to build something like this. And it only has 8 firing lanes. This one has 13. So these are some of the photos of the facility. Photos don't do justice to the type of facility that this is, and I want to extend an invitation to all of you. If you're interested in coming over to Oak Harbor, doing a tour of the facility, I'm happy to set that tour up so that you can see what it looks like. So what we're asking for is a $150,000 opioid settlement funds investment. By doing this, we're really investing in the future. Currently, I know that that Chief Floyd talked about that he's paying about $6,500 for just a gun range use. That's 10 times a year that he's getting access to that range, and that's at a lower price than what a lot of other people are paying. Current cost for a gun range is about $700 to $750 per day, and that is going up every year depending on what the costs are for that commercial owner, because all of the ranges that we have that are indoor gun ranges are owned commercially. So by doing this investment, and this is an upfront investment that we're asking for, It increases the frequency of training, allows you actual access to the facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, allows you to schedule more than just gun shooting range training or firearms training, allows you to schedule for all of the other training needs that you might have as a department, allows us to host training regionally, and then also get some of those benefits of hosting training regionally, which also are often free seats in a class. And that's the other thing about that. Like I said, it improves recruitment and retention, enhances our training regionally as our partnerships, and provides a safe, secure, and purpose-built facility in the North Puget Sound region, which we don't currently have. Also, Oak Harbor and Anacortes are the only two WASPIC accredited agencies in Island and Skagit County. And so I think this is a great partnership. I think that we have a higher standard when we go through our WASPIC accreditation, and there are often things that we're required to meet as our accreditation standards. So I think this aligns a lot, very well there. Yeah. And I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Well, I'm sure there'll be questions. And I don't know, Chief, do you want to kind of set the council up with what we're asking maybe the council to do here?
Absolutely. First, I just wanted to emphasize a couple of points that Chief Slowick mentioned, but I think are important and enough to make sure they get covered a second time, and that's the capacity of the current range facilities that are available to us. I currently have about 6 lanes that we are able to send officers to qualify on. You know, this facility is 13 lanes, so it doubles our capacity per session. Normally, we would send officers in either a morning or an afternoon session, so we can do 2 a day. So this doubles the amount of people that we can get through per session. And he also mentioned, you know, we're currently doing about 10 sessions a year. This would allow us as many as we want, essentially. We could do 20 or 30 sessions a year. We would likely not do that many because with qualifying sessions comes additional costs like ammunition and that kind of stuff. But we would have the capability to do so if we needed to. I think that's important. He also mentioned that, you know, there's the capabilities in this facility to do more than just range qualification, and that's a lot of the de-escalation tactics that we really focus on are less lethal weapons, the just communication with individuals to de-escalate situations before they rise to the use of force levels. So I think those are essential, and being able to train those as a package in one location, I think allows us greater efficiency in our training, which is important. With that, they're asking for agencies in the Skagit and Island County regions to partner with them in this purchase with some upfront funding, and that allows us to be able to get priority over any other agencies outside the Skagit and Island County region that may come later on and have desire to use the same facility. So they're looking at a tiered system. So the agencies that invest early would be the tier 1, and those would get priority access before anybody else is allowed to try to reserve dates. And those individuals, those agencies would be paying for the range use as a daily rate, similar to what we do now. So it comes at a significant savings for the future. As you said, you know, on the average, the $650 rate that we're paying now is a fairly good deal compared to what other agencies are paying. And we're looking to try to secure training for many years going forward at today's prices. So what we would like to get now from council is just an indication whether this is something that you would like to see us proceed with further in a form of an interlocal agreement with the City of Oak Harbor, or if there's any questions I can answer to help that process.
All right. Yeah, I was just trying to set up so they help them inform your questions that ultimately whether we spend more staff time working on an interlocal that would ultimately come back to council. Obviously not looking for final approval, but, okay, with that, council question time.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you, and thanks to Mayor Wright and the chief for coming up to talk to us about this. I appreciate it, and of course, we always strengthen our ability to do things when we have partnerships. So I appreciate the effort in this direction. Where are we going currently for our training?
So we are currently using 2 private facilities. One is an indoor range that's in Burlington, and then the other one is an outdoor range that's located in just outside of the city of Oak Harbor.
Okay, so relatively local.
Yes.
Also, okay. So I just did a little back of the napkin math, and it looks like if we were to contribute $150,000, that if things all stayed the same, it would be about 20 years worth of funding. And my next question, I hope someone has the answer to this, is how much opioid money do we have currently? And I think that North Star is looking for some of our opioid money too, so I'd like to know how that all fits together or doesn't.
Yeah, I can try to answer that. I anticipated that question might come up, but and maybe Ms. Swetnam can back me up, but I got the numbers from Mr. Hoagland, and I believe we have 287,000-ish right now. The only opioid money we've obligated is some money for our Zeke, our new canine. And yes, we anticipate the North Star folks coming to council within the next couple weeks to talk about shared dollar amount. So hopefully that helped.
Thank you, it does. And can you remind us what North Star specifically wants the money for?
So I think it's, hopefully everybody's getting the North Star notes, and I think you can find it in one of the presentations, but off the top of my head, North Star, again, the same thing, would like to, use the way they presented it to the leadership team, which I'm part of, is they want to consolidate, get a better bang for the buck, trying to figure out what the best use of the money. Opioid funds are restricted for certain things, so I think the North Star leadership team asked them to neck it down from 15 things that you want to some of the top things. So, for example, the transitional housing from the jail, they may be able to add some more beds to that. But they also recognize that the cities wanted to have, so it wasn't. I don't think they're going to come to council and say, hey, give us all your North Star money. I think there's the ask is going to be some percentage of it. So again, I certainly didn't promise anything to North Star, but I promised them they would have an opportunity to talk to the council about it.
Okay, thanks. So that definitely will be part of my consideration on how I would think we should proceed. And so it sounds like, so we have a place in Burlington that's indoors, and we have a place in Oak Harbor that's outdoors that we can access for the price that you're talking about at $650 a day. But where are we doing the training for the de-escalation and the patrol tactics and all the other things that you mentioned? Where are we currently doing those trainings?
So those have moved around to numerous locations depending on what's open and available when we have the instructors to be able to put those classes on. We've done them in the National Guard Armory here locally. We've done them at the Oak Harbor Fire Department on North Whidbey. We've done them numerous places, and it really depends on what's open and available, because none of those locations have been consistently available every time we've been able to put a class on. So having some consistency there allows us to be able to be a little bit more deliberate with our class scheduling and getting people through meeting state mandates as required. The other thing that I would like to mention is one of the things that occurred to me when Chief Slowick presented this opportunity is who bears the responsibility for maintenance and upkeep of this facility. And that's something that Oak Harbor would be taking care of. We would not have to have any later costs going for maintenance and upkeep beyond the initial investment that they're asking for now. And that's significant when you're running an indoor range facility, because as he mentions, there are a lot of requirements for health and safety of the occupants inside.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
Thanks, Chiefs. So just a question. So right now you said we're paying about $650 a day. Is that like per officer to go to training?
No, that's for us to rent the facility, and we get as many people through that training day as we can.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, it's typically about 6 officers per range session, just because of the amount of lanes that are available.
And over the past like 5 years, how significantly have you seen that price rise? Because one of the things that's attractive to me about this situation is being able to lock in for a 20-year period without a price increase. So I'm just curious, maybe you would know like what you've seen.
I can tell you that when we shot at the Plantation Range in Whatcom County in 2017, 2018, just prior to me taking over as a captain that was responsible for scheduling our training, it was about $650 a day. But the other range facilities kind of around the area have significantly increased. One of the ways that we've been able to keep our costs down is by splitting time between 2 different facilities. One has a lot more available to us as far as a classroom for instruction, as far as an indoor area to train, and the outdoor area is it's very rudimentary at best. It's a covered firing line, but it doesn't do much. There's no classroom facility. It's a much less robust training platform. So this would significantly increase not only our capacity, but the time of year wouldn't matter. What we train. Right now, we're very restricted on training certain things in the spring and summer when we're at the outdoor range, because we're not doing shotgun, less lethal, or the rifle training at the indoor range in Burlington, where we could do that at the Oak Harbor facility if we chose to.
Okay, and I know, so it's a $150,000 initial investment, and then does that, and then we wouldn't be responsible for any maintenance or upkeep, that would all be with Oak Harbor. But is there a per use cost after that, or are we just good for 20 years?
My understanding was there was nothing additional after that initial investment, and if Chief Sloat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were looking for the initial investment up front, and then the maintenance, upkeep, and ongoing costs beyond that, they would be taking care of those.
Okay, I'm kind of very into this idea. What I would be curious about, if other council members decide it's worth pursuing, is an area of focus on that interlocal for me would be about the tiered system and how things kind of get decided and who has priority. By the way, has anyone, you said there are municipalities in Skagit and other, who else is Oak Harbor reaching out to, and have any of them signed on yet?
So I've talked to the police chiefs in all of the jurisdictions in Skagit County and in Island County. Everybody's come in and done tours of the facility. This is the first city council that I've done a presentation to. So
Okay.
I'm working my way east.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Young.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, first of all. I love the idea of collaboration between, adjoining groups and working together. I'm really happy about that. I thought the presentation was very good. I do have a couple of questions that I would like to understand a little bit better. I think Mr. Fantini brought up the idea of additional costs at this, and then my fellow Councilwoman Moulton brought up the term, meaning that 20 years is a long time to sort of use today's dollars for. $150,000 is not a lot of money, yes, I get that. But, I guess what I'm needing more information on is Chief, for you to say to us, these are the list of things that we can save money on. These are what we are currently paying for some of that. And this, as a result of that tabulation, is why we need, we think this is a good investment. I think, early on from the presentation, you guys are stellar. I really like that. I think that the people that you representing Oak Harbor that are here, I applaud that. Where my challenge as a B school, I want to know more of the details. I think looking at payments 20 years down the line, our needs can change. I think we can go a couple of years out, but our needs might change. So, but if you can show me that this is how we're going to save money, these are the auxiliary benefits of that, and these are the costs that we're currently paying. When I look at those things compiled and look at the $150,000, I may say that's fantastic. Let's just go ahead and get in that. But I don't have that right now. And so for me, beyond the projection of the benefit that it would be to all of us, which is very important, and I recognize that, and I appreciate that, and I think that that's a good thing. I need more than that, because what you've only told me was that it's going to cost $150,000 and that there are others coming to the table. Wonderful. But you've not shown me where it's going to save the money and how much money. So for me, that's a critical component about showing why the $150,000 is what we should be making. Again, I don't think it's a lot of money. I don't. But, when, like Ms. Moulton did, I brought up my phone, did the little calculator too thing just to sort of see what the costs were, and I need a little bit more than that. I think it's a wonderful idea, but before I could say yes to this one, I really need, Chief, for you to bring that to us and present that. And because then what it really does tangibly show us as well as the public what you're dealing with the cost. You pointed out some things, but when you can add them up like that, for me, that's critically important. So that's what I'm looking for you to bring in order for me to make a decision on this one. Short of that, my answer would be no.
Yeah, I think those are valid points, Mr. Young.
Thank you.
So I would tell you that one of the reasons I moved us from Plantation to the range facilities that we're at was the difficulty in scheduling, and the indoor range in Burlington was a cheaper daily rate than Plantation was. Since we have been there, that cost has been up about $100 per day since we started going there. Roughly.
Not to interrupt you on that, because whenever you bring something to us, the thing that I like about it is that I depend on you already doing your due diligence. I know when you come here that you've done your due diligence. I know that. So, but the point, I'm on a sliver of a point here, and that sliver of a point is that I need you to show me what that is. I know it's difficult. Running a department is not easy at all, and let alone a stellar department like you're doing. Okay, I know that. But what I'm saying that is part of the work that I need you to bring to me, and I would like to believe other council members, is that I want you to show me exactly, as close as you can get, to the benefit. Because then when I go out and talk to the public, I want to also be able to say, this is why we did it. We believe Oak Harbor has got a great idea. $150,000 is nothing, because look how much we're going to save the public and taxpayers. That's what I need from you, and I know you can provide that. Okay? Thank you.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath, and then Mr. Walters.
Thank you. So thank you to the Oak Harbor Chief and the Mayor for being here, and then Chief Floyd for bringing this to us. You floated a kind of high level at our last public safety meeting, which was helpful. So first off, I appreciate the fact that Oak Harbor's thinking creatively, that this is an issue for a region. It's a much more cost-effective to try to secure this facility than try to build one from the ground up. And I also think that the opportunity to do co-response training, de-escalation training, all of those things seems really fantastic. And I'm glad that Oak Harbor's coming and talking to both counties about this. I think the problem, and I probably mentioned it at the committee level, was why isn't CJTC kind of being the owner-operator of this facility? Because it seems really beneficial for the whole region to have this and have it dedicated to law enforcement. That being said, we can't wait for the perfect. We have to deal with what we can make happen locally. So I guess that takes me to my next question, which is, I think it comes down to the details, and I don't want to use the word business plan, but I'm curious to know how Oak Harbor is going to, how Oak Harbor plans to kind of organize it and operate it. Is this just going to be available to law enforcement? Are you also going to open it to the public? Is this going to be for profit? Or, if it's open to the public, is it for profit? I guess those are the kind of details that I would like to have a better understanding of. How it's going to be used, how the access for priority, the tiers, how will you track use? So are we going to have just a dollar amount of $150,000 and we kind of just keep a tally of, as we commit days, we run that amount down? Or are we committing 10 calendar days a year? I think that those are things that hopefully, if you're able to get enough municipalities on board, that this facility will be used on a regular basis and frequently, so that would be important information for us to have. So some of those details, and I know you probably don't have that now, but those are the kind of things that I would like to see at the next step, which I'm open to for having staff work on this and having us figure out how to make this happen. My one caveat is the fact that, when we're talking $150,000 cash up front, putting money together is hard. We just had a meeting at 4 about how do we pay for an event center, right? So I appreciate the challenge and the trying to be creative of how do you get some chunks of change cobbled together to make this purchase. But from a city council Anacortes perspective, we don't get a lot of chunks of change with no strings, minimal strings attached. So putting that $150,000 up front now and what that time frame looks like to close and actually get us, able to use that range versus, knowing that we have ongoing operating costs in our budget every year of $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. I'm going with Mr. Young that we need to be able to make sure that taking that chunk of change and putting it towards this project is a higher priority than another project. And I think that I want our police officers to be well-trained and coordinating with neighboring law enforcement. So I think this is a really great idea. I just want to see some of the more details. And maybe that's exactly what you were hoping to hear from us, is keep moving forward and get us some more things on paper.
I can answer a few of those questions. So it is intended to be in law enforcement only range. It would not be open to the public. One of the reasons for that is to maximize the availability to the agencies that are participating. And some of the other benefits beyond just the cost savings on day use rentals would be, as Chief Slowick glossed over, bringing training to our region. One of the things that we have to do as agencies is make sure that our instructors keep their certifications to instruct. We all know that firearms is kind of a high liability area, and so making sure that our instructors are teaching the latest, most updated curriculum, I think, is important. And we've had some challenges getting them through recertification just because CJTC is canceling classes due to lack of available range space. And so having an adequate facility available for them to come and certify a class of instructors in a recertification is really important. One of your other questions is why isn't CJTC taking the lead on this? And I think that's a pretty straightforward answer. And CJTC has been tasked by our state legislature in so many different areas. 25 years ago when I went through the academy, their sole purpose was as a training body. They were responsible for the training curriculum and making sure that curriculum was administered to officers statewide in a consistent manner. Since that time, they've now taken on managing certifications for officers to work in the state. They've taken on grant programs, administering the grant program that was just approved by the legislature this year. They've taken on investigating third-party complaints of officers. So if someone feels like their complaint isn't being heard by the agency, they have the option to go to CJTC. They're also managing decertification processes where that officer's certification is revoked or suspended. There's a lot of administrative work that they're doing now in addition to training, which was originally their sole purpose. And so CJTC has been stretched very thin in multiple different directions, and they've had to add a large number of staff to try to keep up with that, and they're treading water at best. So I think that's one of the primary reasons that you would not see them take on a project like this.
Mr. Walters.
Thank you. First question, what's Oak Harbor's contracted purchase price of the facility?
$2.7 million.
2.7 million.
Yeah.
All right. Generally, I like this idea. I have no fundamental objection. I think you've sold us on the justification. And I think an important point that may get missed, but what I think I heard is it's not just a gun range. You're going to have,
that's correct.
More capability than just a gun range. I also think we're thin at this point on the operations and financing. I have similar concerns as my colleagues who spoke before. I think, as Ms. Cleland McGrath pointed out, it's somewhat akin to our event center. And that took 2 years to get to interlocal agreements to figure out how to finance. And so I'm hopeful that this will be faster. I would propose, and I don't think you're proposing, but just to put it on the record, that we not be a partner in owning or operating the facility. We don't want the liability or the management expense or the responsibility. That the amount of participation among the various jurisdictions that are participating should be more or less equal on some basis, which is not necessarily the same amount per jurisdiction, but the same amount per capita, for population, for number of officers that will use some basis, some neutral basis. It should be equal amount per participating jurisdiction. I wonder if their participation allows that jurisdiction to buy in for use of the facility for a set amount of time. There needs to be explicit what does buying in get you. I think I heard that there would not be a daily rate if you buy in.
That's correct.
Okay, which makes sense to me. Is there an additional buy-in after the initial arrangement, after the initial term? Because it's assumedly not forever. How many days per year would we get to be able to use it? What overall is the term of the agreement? Those are just some of the questions that I think would need to be addressed in a future interlocal agreement that would flesh this out. And rather than an interlocal agreement whereby all 13, 20 jurisdictions that you're talking to have to sign on and to make it effective, maybe it could just be an interlocal between the city and Oak Harbor, and people that opt in, opt in. If you don't, you're opted out, and you don't get to use the facility, and maybe you don't get to use you don't even get to pay a daily rate unless you then buy in like the other jurisdictions do. I don't know. I don't know what this looks like. These are just some of the considerations that I had upon presentation of this. Otherwise, I think that it's eminently able to be figured out, and I'm looking forward to that future discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall, and then Ms. Hubick.
My colleagues have pretty much asked all the questions I had, but I wanted to say thank you for bringing the proposal here. You know, the world is complex and expensive, and anybody who, you know, works or owns a small business or works for a smallish municipality knows that economies of scale are truly advantageous. And so partnerships like this, should we pursue it, like that helps give like the benefit of economy of scale. So appreciate that. The actually little question I had was, are there specific strings attached to the funding from the settlement?
They're looking at you, Ms. Swetnam, but I can give it a shot. There are, and there's multiple pages of opioid funding. There are multiple pages of opioid funding restrictions, but this would not be one of them.
Yeah, the opioid funding has to be used for certain types of things that are articulated in the settlement agreement between the local agencies and the Washington State Attorney General's office, and it includes things like treating opioid abuse disorder, preventing opioid abuse disorder, but also law enforcement training is in that category, and that's why the city was able to use those funds for the purchase of the police dog. Because that fit within that category, and this would be a similar type of allowed use. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Ubik?
My follow-up, thank you, sir, was on the upcoming opioid settlements. Would appreciate if Ms. Swetnam could check my online lookup real quick, but it sounds like in June and July, it was announced that there's another tranche of opioid settlements that cities and municipalities and counties could sign up for. Again, with a reminder that the settlements are paid out over 10 or 15 years or something, but we'll see most of the money in the first 3 years, I think. So if anyone has concerns about, I guess, possibly depriving something from North Star in order to fund this, but would love a double check that my information that I found was accurate, and that we can anticipate some money over the next 5-6 years being added to this.
Oh, yeah. No, that's accurate. There's another settlement, the Purdue settlement, I believe, is still, Ms. Swetnam, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, great question. Yeah, so I did look at that today, and there's a Purdue settlement, and then there's also a settlement with 8 other I can't remember what the word is, but manufacturers that produce generic medication, generic manufacturers. And between those two, over the coming years, we can anticipate around $100,000. And there are also future payouts from the settlements that the city's already participated in. So between those two, I think the city can plan on receiving about an additional $560,000 over the course of the next, like, I think 14 years is the longest one out, so.
Okay, I feel like we've heard from council that we at least provide the information to build the foundation of an interlocal type agreement directly between Oak Harbor, and then I know that council will certainly be asking how we pay for it. So I think if I don't see any disagreement with that, we'll move forward with that. So again, thank you, City of Oak Harbor. Oh, sorry, we have one more comment?
No, just
Mr.
one more
Young.
comment. Thank you, Mayor Miller. No, just to be clear, really, it's an extraordinary opportunity. It really is. The only thing that I'm looking for is to be able to explain it and to show. I like when we have ideas like this coming forward. Obviously, it's a great opportunity. It really is. But I also want to know how we're saving money. So that allows me to be able to articulate, it's sort of like with the streets. When we pave streets from the Public Works Department, we save that amount of money because we've got our own paver. And I like knowing that we're saving money, we save X amount of dollars. In this case, given your presentation, I just really want to know how we're saving it, and then that quantifies the amount of money. That's the only thing I'm looking for. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, I think a similar situation would be the current state that we're looking at for our emergency vehicle operations training. So historically, for 23 years, we trained our high-speed vehicle operations training at the Bayview Regional Airport. And they've decided they have some other plans for the area of the airport that we used to train. And so now all the Skagit County agencies, Oak Harbor, Island County, San Juan County, we are all now forced to go to Arlington and train at that regional airport. And that is the closest facility that we're able to do that training. That training is required every 2 years by state statute. So the concern is not only the cost, but access to these critical training areas that are becoming more and more difficult to find. I have, concerns that our ability to train vehicle operations at the Arlington Airport may be in jeopardy before too long because, Amazon has expanded significantly in that area, and there's a lot of freight traffic coming in and out. So, those are concerns that we need to try to look ahead and solve before we have to scramble and find something at the last minute. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to address with this facility is look at long-term sustainability and access to that before we lose the areas that we're using currently. I know that the outdoor range in Oak Harbor that we use during 2 quarters of the year, I've had difficulty scheduling just between the other agencies. Agencies as far away as Marysville is coming up there now to shoot because there's nothing else available for them in Snohomish County.
All right, great discussion. Thank you for that. Thank you, City of Oak Harbor, for coming to see us. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to item 6B. This is ordinance 4096, State Environmental Policy Act, better known as SEPA, legislative actions. This is a discussion item and, of course, the first read of an ordinance. And Ms. Swetnam is almost pulling it up. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Swetnam.
Thanks, Mayor Miller and members of council and members of the audience. So as Mayor Miller mentioned, this is a first read. We're not asking for any action tonight. There's some edits that will need to happen to this ordinance for final adoption, but it is to address what we do with local appeals for SEPA threshold determinations on non-project actions. So just to provide some kind of high-level background on SEPA, SEPA is the State Environmental Policy Act codified at RCW Chapter 4321, and a lot of the procedures are outlined in WAC Chapter 19711. What it does is it requires and provides process for local agencies to consider the environmental impacts of proposed actions. We think about this a lot of the time when you hear about SEPA actions on project actions. If somebody wants to build something, what are the environmental impacts going to be of that particular project? Those are project actions, and that's not what we're talking about tonight. Non-project actions are policy level decisions, programs, plans. Anytime the city does something that's not categorically exempt in terms of developing a new ordinance or development regulation, there's a requirement to consider environmental impacts through a SEPA checklist. So part of the SEPA process is a threshold determination is made for any action that's not categorically exempt. And there are 3 threshold determinations. One is a determination of significance, meaning that the agency determines that there is likelihood going to be some significant environmental impacts of the proposed action, and that's what would trigger an environmental impact statement. There's also a determination of non-significance, meaning you decide that there are no probable environmental impacts, and so an EIS is not required. And then thirdly, there's also an opportunity to make a mitigated determination of non-significance, meaning there will not be an impact, a likely impact, if mitigation measures are required. So that's a procedural step that happens through any type of action that SEPA is required for. And that's what we're talking about tonight, is appeals of those threshold determinations. So under the current code at section 1804250, it talks about appeals. This is in the SEPA section of our code. Appeals of SEPA threshold determinations are processed per AMC Title 19. That's what it says now in the code. Doesn't differentiate between project actions, like somebody applies for a permit to build something. It applies to anything, whether it's a project action or a legislative action. So currently, SEPA threshold determinations are type 2 administrative decisions. And so what that means is that decision is made by the director, which is Mr. Coleman, and it has a local appeal to the hearing examiner. So currently, if there is a determination that Mr. Coleman makes on an upcoming ordinance, that appeal has to then be heard by a hearing examiner, which delays council to consider the ordinance. And what we've seen kind of play out is that doesn't make a whole lot of sense procedurally. So, and as I said before, the current code doesn't differentiate on these appeals from project and non-project actions. So what this ordinance proposes to change is to draw that line between project actions and non-project actions and provide a new process for those threshold determination appeals for non-project actions. And what we're proposing is, because these non-project actions are likely going to be coming to City Council for consideration, that the appeal be heard directly by City Council. You see in the draft that we provided some guidance about timelines, how the appeal is served, contents of the appeals, and that process would be added directly into that section that addresses those appeals currently. Now, appeals of threshold determinations for project actions, again, subdivisions, anything related to a specific project, would still go to the hearing examiner as a type 2 decision. So I want to just kind of mention that legal and planning spent a long time drawing lines between different sections of the code and mapping out what the process is now versus what it should be. And this was adopted when we did the whole-scale rewrite of Title 19, so there was a lot of stuff that was adopted in that ordinance, and I don't think that we were thinking about these threshold determination appeals for non-project actions. We also looked at whether we should even have a local appeal. We are not required under state law to have a local appeal, but that's what the community's been used to. So we thought maybe it makes more sense to have council consider those appeals directly when they consider taking action on whatever the underlying non-project action is. And I'm sorry for getting into the weeds of process stuff after you've had hours of public meetings already, but that's the proposal. Again, we're not asking for any action tonight. I already had a conversation with Mr. Walters earlier about maybe some potential tweaks to the ordinance to make it better. So I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any feedback that council has.
All right, council.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
First, a question. In recent memory, have there been any appeals of non-project legislative threshold determinations?
There have not, but we have a pending appeal right now.
We have one pending one, but
Correct.
Otherwise, in recent memory,
No.
certainly since 2016, when we adopted this provision, there have been none other than the one that's currently pending.
Correct.
So I guess I would challenge the idea that the community is used to having the ability to appeal
Okay, that's fair.
non-project legislative actions. In fact, it appears most people have not even thought of that. There is, I think, a separate question of whether we want to allow an appeal of EIS adequacy, which is another thing that we could allow for an appeal for under the statute. But also, I think of these as maybe three buckets. One, project actions, whether the legislative action is involved with it or not. Things that go through the permit process for sure are project actions, and we're not proposing to change any of that.
Correct.
But then the non-project actions that maybe are administrative, I would distinguish from non-project actions that are legislative, because the legislative ones come to us. So if we allow for a legislative non-project action, if we allow for an appeal for that before us, how will that look different from the regular public comment that is required to be allowed by state law on final actions anyway?
Yeah, I think that's the point, is that by eliminating the hearing examiner step, we can streamline that and really make it just a part of council's underlying consideration of the whatever the legislative action is. I mean,
Yes,
I think.
but so if someone wants to appeal the threshold determination on
Right.
some legislative action that's coming before us anyway, so they then would appeal it under this ordinance, which requires the filing of a form and stating, the various bases for that appeal. Then it comes to us. What would be the difference from the appellant simply coming to the public comment period that we're required to have on the underlying action and say, hey, I think your SEPA threshold determination was incorrect?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And, generally, I think when we have like an ordinance that comes to council, council's not really, overturning the director's determination about whether there's environmental impacts or not. And so, I mean, maybe just doesn't exactly make sense that council would, if Mr. Coleman comes up with a determination of non-significance, I don't know that council would overturn that decision through the legislative process and send the project back for him to, issue a determination of significance. Now, council might decide not to adopt the ordinance, but I think it just sort of gives a focus on that threshold determination. Personally, I'm not sure that it's something that we need to have a local appeal for, because I think your point is well taken, that there's a lot of public engagement already through the legislative process, that if, council feels that there was an improper threshold determination, council can send the ordinance back and say, we're just not going to adopt it. So, and again, this was part of the back and forth that legal and planning did in evaluating this ordinance. Do we build this process in? Do we take it out? And so I think that there's definitely some, council certainly has oversight whether you want to have that process locally or not.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we are just creating extra process with no real difference on the ground. Because if there's an opportunity for public comment, how's that different from an appeal process? I mean, we can make it look different. We could all put on black robes first. But I think ideally, those two things would be integrated. The comment on the underlying issue of whatever it is that's coming forward to us legislatively, and the adequacy of the SEPA threshold evaluation, the determination that's based on something that is apparently inadequate in the appellant's mind. Why aren't they making all those comments together? And if they are, then what's the point of creating additional process? I would lean in favor of just not offering an administrative appeal for legislative non-project actions, but then maybe retaining it for administrative non-project action, some non-project action that doesn't come before us. My point being that if it's before us, it's before us. Please come talk to us. You have the opportunity anyway.
I think that's a good point, and maybe it would be worthwhile for Mr. Coleman and I to sit down and identify what the administrative non-project actions that you would still want to have a local appeal for would likely be. I think there are probably not that many of those types of
There aren't
action.
that many of any of these.
Yeah,
I mean,
correct.
apparently zero appeals besides the one pending appeal. So, yeah, I would urge us to consider just that option. Simplify things, streamline things, especially where it's legislative action that's coming before us anyway. And then there's a line in the ordinance, the proposed text, that says there is not an automatic stay, which implies that we could take action notwithstanding the appeal anyway.
Correct.
Okay, so that would seem to further the, I mean, if we include that, then what's the point of providing for the appeal process?
Yeah, and we put that language in because the appeal that we have currently is holding up council's ability to adopt some legislation that's mandated by state law. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, I mean, I think that part of the problem that we're trying to solve with this is eliminating opportunities for somebody to use this appeal process to delay the city's adoption of legislative actions that are important and need to otherwise happen. So,
Yeah, just generally, I'm not in favor of providing appeal processes where they duplicate the process that's already available, or where they provide people the opportunity to thwart the action of the city for an illegitimate basis.
fair.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Fantini.
I have a question, because I'm a little confused now. Two attorneys, and I'm trying to understand. So the reason is the appeal that you have in front of you kind of like the reason for this? Because so when I listen to Mr. Walters, it sounds like we don't need this because it's only going to drag out a process that already seems long. But then I listen to you, and I feel like what I'm hearing is this is actually going to make it harder for people to drag the process out. And I'm having trouble squaring that. Can you?
So if I think I understand your question, the purpose of the proposed ordinance, and I don't want to say that we drafted an ordinance to thwart an appeal. That's not the case. But when we get appeals or we get, you know, cases that come up, it is sort of a test for the processes that we have in our code. And sometimes those highlight, oh yeah, this is something that isn't working very well, we should fix this. And so that's the thought process that kind of went into putting this ordinance together. But I think the goal of this ordinance is to make it harder for somebody to drag the process out. Does that answer your question?
It does. So it sounds like what you're saying is what you're proposing will make it harder for people to drag the process out, so therefore kind of quickens the process a little bit.
There's three options. There are way more than three options, but three options that we're talking about today. One is leave the code the way it is, where an appeal of a threshold determination for non-project action goes to the hearing examiner. Number two is what's in this ordinance, which says, okay, we're not going to do that. Instead of having to go to the hearing examiner, it's just going to go to city council when they consider whatever the underlying legislative or non-project action is. That's kind of in the direction of streamlining more. And Mr. Walter's suggestion is kind of item number three, which is we take out the local appeal altogether so that there isn't an opportunity locally. Now, people can take these issues to court, but we don't have a built-in local appeal, so there wouldn't be really any opportunity to stop whatever the non-project action is on the basis of a local appeal.
So if we did the local appeal, they could still take it to a higher place?
Always, yeah.
Always. Okay,
I
so
mean,
I think I understand now.
We attorneys never like to say always, but there's we're just talking about local appeals here. There are generally opportunities to appeal either legislative or, you know, project decisions to Superior Court or another regulatory appellate board.
Excellent. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, I understand the three pots and that makes sense. But if it were to go, the appeal went straight to council, how does that function? Does that then become quasi-judicial?
No, because it's not a project action.
Specifically.
Correct.
So there wouldn't be an issue of not being able to discuss the ordinance with council like there is when it's a specific project with a specific applicant in front that will be potentially in front of us.
Correct, yeah. So the appearance of fairness doctrine doesn't apply for legislative actions.
And so then if we were to choose the third option, which is, and I get having to go to the hearing examiner. Hearing examiners can take months to finally get in front of. So
Correct.
function-wise, sounds easy to get a hearing examiner, and that's the fairest way to do it. But in reality, that can take months, 6 months, a year, longer. Okay, you want to talk now? Okay.
If I may.
Yes, please.
I'm not done, though.
I just want
No,
to
you
interject
still
that-
have your time, but
I
if you
just
want to let
want-
Mr. Coleman
want to-
jump in.
Like, we don't necessarily have that much trouble getting a hearing examiner. It can add time, hopefully not long periods of time like that. But in these processes, this non-project would never go to the hearing examiner anyway. So to have the appeal of the SEPA go to the hearing examiner, and this is one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, doesn't really make a lot of sense because the hearing examiner is not part of the legislative process anyways. So this seemed like the wrong path, and that's why we started this process. Whereas the SEPA is normally, appeal would often, in project actions, be heard by whoever's going to be making the recommendation or decision. So it didn't make sense for the hearing examiner to be in a legislative process. So that's why this started.
Thank you. So it seems to me that what we're really trying to get at is whether or not there's, when it comes to SEPA, if it's significant enough impact or not. And that threshold determination sure seems like it's more reasonable to just have public comment be included in the packet that comes to council and allow for public comment. This just seems like we're adding another legal layer that doesn't really make any sense and does not accomplish anything other than adding another legal layer. So we really want to try to streamline things so it's more straightforward and the general public can understand the process. So I would like ideally to go back and remove that third bucket.
So I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I think we agree. And so we would eliminate the local appeal for SEPA threshold determination, which doesn't mean that those things can't then be discussed through the legislative process or that they can't ultimately be appealed in some way to an outside jurisdiction, but it would just get rid of that local appeal.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if we hear public comment, either at the planning commission level or at the city council level, concern saying that that the public thinks that it hits the threshold that needs determination or versus non-determination, we can go back and ask staff to do more work on an ordinance or modify it in a way that addresses the concerns from the public and council, correct?
Of course.
All right, anybody else want to jump in on this one? Yes, this one is open for public comment, so come on up. Thank you for reminding me, as an asterisk on there.
Hi, Courtney Orrock, Anacortes. So question on this, when would this go into effect? If it were to pass?
So go into effect 5 days after adoption and publication. So it wouldn't apply to the current appeal that's already pending. It would just apply to any future appeals that were filed after its adoption, +5.
And then, so now I'm confused as to what council's considering. Are you considering taking out local appeal altogether? Because that's what I just heard. You said third bucket, and that was the third bucket. So you're talking about taking out local appeal altogether?
I think what the idea is that the local appeal kind of gets addressed through the public process anyways, because so we're just talking about this threshold determination, not the underlying ordinance. So maybe I work better with examples. So if council wants to adopt an ordinance to change some piece of development regulation, That's going to have a full legislative process where there will be a public hearing, and there will be opportunities for public comment. In that process, Mr. Coleman would issue a SEPA threshold determination, whether it's significant or not. And if we remove the local appeal, there wouldn't be an opportunity for somebody to say, okay, well, you can't keep talking about the ordinance. We're just going to appeal his threshold determination because we think there are environmental impacts. But instead, what would happen is, rather than a separate appeal process, they'd be able to provide that feedback through the legislative process directly to council. So we're not calling it a local appeal, but there's still an opportunity for public engagement through that public legislative process.
And then in order for that to move forward.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. In order for that to move forward, would council have to have a majority to send that back for review?
Right. Majority of council is decision makers, and so if council decided that they wanted to do something on the, different with the ordinance, that always happens with majority.
Council is, yes, council is the highest local level of authority in the city, just to make that clear.
Okay.
There-
So,
Okay.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So I
Good.
think what I'm saying, now that I think I have the picture, I'm a little concerned about taking away someone's ability to appeal unless they have council majority, which I think is kind of what's happening. Because they can't go back for review to planning unless council has the majority to allow them to do that. Is that accurate? But I can go in for an appeal right now to the hearing examiner, just myself. New process, I come to council during public comment, they have to agree to have it reviewed. Okay, I just find that a little bit concerning that takes that away. But that's just
Council
my
is
comment.
the highest local authority. Anything that the council does, and I hate to say this out loud, can actually go to Superior Court, for example.
And the other thing is that if there's an appeal of a threshold determination and the hearing examiner makes a particular decision about it, it doesn't mean that the ordinance gets adopted because council's still the ultimate decision maker on that ordinance.
That's what I'm trying to make clear. Council is the ultimate decision maker.
Yeah, I didn't do a good enough job of mapping all of this out, but it's you're all feeling a little bit of the pain that planning and legal have been going through and trying to, figure out the best way for all of these dots to connect, so.
Well, I think we have some time to ask some more questions.
Absolutely.
And that's, the idea was to just get this out in the open and get
Start the
your
discussion.
feedback, so.
Yeah.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters?
I do think it's relatively complicated and kind of conceptually difficult to figure out which path is the right path. But I think illuminating where we are today with the appeal that has been pending for the last 8 so months while we don't currently have a hearing examiner under contract is useful. So we have a draft ordinance that would adopt the statutorily required time periods for processing permits. That was required for us to adopt by January 1 of 2025, and it's now August 18th.
Correct.
And so this went to the Planning Commission, got a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission towards the end of last year, and then the SEPA threshold determination was appealed. And had we had a hearing examiner, hopefully the hearing examiner would have heard that appeal and made a determination sometime much sooner than now. But that didn't happen. And so still we are just waiting around for that to occur. Now, I think Ms. Swetnam has indicated that that's still going to happen on that particular ordinance.
Yeah, we actually have a hearing scheduled mid-September, so, I anticipate that that'll get resolved one way or another relatively quickly, but if the determination of non-significance that was issued in that case is overturned, then there would be a requirement for additional environmental consideration.
Right, arguably an EIS.
Yes.
Which I don't think any jurisdiction in the state has issued on their ordinance adopting the state mandatory time periods. So it's particularly problematic appeal, I would say. But it's also holding us up from complying with state law. And what about the next one? You know, so the question before us is on a legislative matter where someone could come forward and say, well, we don't like the time periods. At the public comment period that we are required to offer before the Planning Commission for a development regulation and before the City Council for any final action on anything. And they can say, you know, we think that it creates some environmental concern. They have that ability, even if we eliminate the SEPA threshold determination appeal for non-project legislative actions that nobody else was aware of that we even offered or felt they needed to engage in at least the last 10 years. But once we move to a state where we don't offer that appeal, it will be in front of us, and we'll hear that comment, and we can make a decision. Right now, it's not even in front of us. It's in front of somebody else. And we can't get it in front of us. So I think that's really the key, is if we want to set up our own procedural roadblocks. So the two paths that have been identified here is one that's in the ordinance to bring us forward the appeal, or the other one is just bring us forward the underlying ordinance and let somebody comment on it. I think the comment that comes forward to us from the podium is going to be the same. So do we want more process or less process? It's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of another, but there's a little bit more expense and involvement on the former. I would just, I'm just in favor of getting something accomplished here, both on the ordinance that is 9 months late and on the next set of ordinances. I mean, we're going to adopt a comp plan, right? We're going to adopt development regulation changes. And we ought not to have the legislative authority of the city thwarted by weird process that doesn't provide us the document that we can evaluate. It sends it off to somebody else, somebody that we currently don't have any contracts with.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Cleland-McGrath.
Thank you. I don't want to make you do a flow chart, but it might be helpful for the general public to understand, to see kind of, first of all, what that SEPA checklist is, and then how it flows differently for if it's actually a specific project versus a non-project. Is that possible?
I love flowcharts. I will
Perfect.
happily make you a flowchart.
Because I think that for the general public, it all starts to kind of blend together, and that we are not talking about specific projects. We are talking about, for one of the examples, like we are talking about an ordinance of how we do timelines that has been already articulated by the state. And so it's these kinds of ordinances that could be really beneficial for affordable housing, for construction, for a number of things, for efficiency, for our permitting department. And it's being held up, and it's hopefully going to be seen in September. So, or we could just have folks come up and discuss it in a public setting like this. So a flow chart. And maybe a SEPA check. Do you have a standard SEPA checklist? I think that'd be great to include in the packet, because I think it's kind of this ambiguous thing that no one really understands what a SEPA checklist is, unless you've seen one before. So that could be helpful just as the background information.
Sure. Yep, we can provide all that stuff.
Mr. Young.
Just to further echo what I heard Ms. Cleland-McGrath said, and recognizing the points of my colleagues here, I do think that the flow chart would be helpful. So, you know, and then also those SEPA checks that we need to do, it really will give us sort of a global view of what we're looking at. And to also recognize what Ms. Orrock was saying about if I understood correctly, the concern was just to make sure that we weren't taking something away from the public as an opportunity for them to sort of have their say. And to the point that I heard Mr. Walters say was that it was so few times that, you know, I think 2016 or whatever date, Ryan can remember dates so fabulously, but at the end of the day, it just seems to be 6 of one, half dozen of another. And so I think by bringing in the points there that you're talking about and the checklist, I think it'll clear it all up for all of us too. And we'll see that maybe it's not taking something away from the public, which is what I believe she was trying to address. And also at the same time, it just brings further clarity for us as well as the public. So I would look forward to that as well. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay. I feel like staff's got enough information to bring this back to City Council, so
Yes.
unless there's,
What
Okay.
we'll plan on doing is bringing back a flow chart that provides some clarity on process. We'll bring a SEPA checklist, and I will update the draft ordinance to have two options, one with a local appeal that goes to council and one without. And so there will be an opportunity for council to adopt whichever one based on the evaluation of the flow chart makes the most sense.
and that doesn't stop council from asking any questions in the meantime.
Please,
And,
yeah.
all right, I'm not going to recognize you, Mr. Walters, until I make sure if somebody else hasn't spoke yet, wants to speak. Okay, Mr. Walters.
I think also a list of categorical exemptions would be useful because almost nothing is subject to SEPA anyway, because of all the categorical exemptions swallow the rules.
All right, I think we got it. So thank you. Good
Thank you.
discussion. Appreciate that on a somewhat exciting topic. All right, 6C, interlocal agreement with Washington Department of Commerce for 2025-2027 climate planning grant. This is a discussion item with possible action. And Mr. Coleman.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'm John Coleman, the Director of Planning, Community, and Economic Development. And what you have tonight in front of you is just a change in a grant agreement with the state for our climate planning grant. So we had received $500,000 for the climate part of our comprehensive plan. That grant originally had it as part of the state 2-year biennium, expired in the end of June. And originally, our comp plan was due at the end of June, so that was all lined up. But when the state extended the timeline for the comp plan to go until the end of 2025, they also recognized that jurisdictions would still be using the money in the grants. So what they did is they extended, they allowed all the jurisdictions that hadn't spent all of the money for their climate grants to continue to spread that out for the remainder of 2025 under a separate grant because of the biennium ended. They needed to create a whole new grant process. So this is just an extension of that original grant, extended timelines. That's it.
All right, questions for Mr. Coleman?
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton?
Unless Mr. Walters has a question.
I have a preemptive second.
Oh, good.
Go for it, Ms. Moulton.
I move that City Council authorize the mayor to execute interlocal cooperation agreement 24120 PLN 004 between the City of Anacortes and Washington State Department of Commerce.
Motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Mr. Walters to approve the interlocal as presented. Any additional discussion? I will make a point, though. This is why this is just a reminder, council procedures, interlocals are required to be on the business agenda. All right, no additional discussion. Mr. Franchak, vote please.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Ms. Hebeck,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you for the work and have a great night. I'll adjourn tonight's meeting.